Let's get out of that.
Nice abrupt stop of music. Looks like you guys were enjoying it. At least you, Dr. Barber, had a little rock going. Wanted to welcome all of you. My name is Clarice Abdul-Bey. It's good to see your beautiful faces, and I can't see all of you, but I'm sure you're here with us. Let me turn this up. Welcome to the Health of Arkansas, where we're addressing social justice, health inequities, and health disparities. Again, my name is Clarice Abdul-Bey, and
I am Kwame Abdul-Bey.
And go ahead.
And I'm just going to say, just for the next 4 hours, we will do a deep dive on a couple of different levels on the importance of us addressing, like you said, social justice as it relates to health inequities and health disparities, and particularly in this era that we're in right now, dealing with SARS-CoV-2, also known as COVID-19. We want to thank Blue and You Foundation for a Healthier Arkansas, because we are able to do this because of a grant from those wonderful people. And we also want to thank our partnership with UAMS College of Public Health. We've been working with them for like a year now on several different projects. See Dr. Bryant Moore smiling there.
That's Dr. Yes, Nash. She's using Dr. Moore's.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Dr.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And we want to thank the Arkansas Poor People's Campaign for being a co-sponsor. Dr. Whitfield is there, and she's going to introduce us to one of our most excellent keynote speakers that I had an opportunity to meet earlier this year. And she's going to give a dynamic presentation. But also, we also have Donald Wood and Amber McCoy. They're going to be doing a healing space for us at the top of the program before we hear from Dr. Barber. But before we get into that, you wanted to do a presentation with the video.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah. Always dropping stuff on me. Okay, so we do have a short little video that we want to jump into before we start our healing space, and basically talking about health inequities and social justice, that intersection, and how they kind of happen. What happens when we don't have basic needs, and where racial issues or disparities and or prejudices jump in the way of our health, causing us to have these issues and this decline on all levels in our lives. So just want to show just a quick video there. It's about 4 minutes to sort of introduce where we will be heading, what we'll be talking about, and then we're going to come back and then go into our healing space.
You talk about that a little bit quicker, but let's see. Switch them up.
To better understand the goal of health equity, you need to learn what causes health differences among groups of people. Health inequities are differences in health that are avoidable, unfair, and unjust. social, economic, and environmental conditions can affect health in a number of ways, creating health inequities. Social inequities occur when a person is treated unfairly because of things like race, class, gender, sexual orientation, or immigration status. Institutions, such as corporations or schools, are empowered to create unequal opportunities based on social status. These unequal opportunities can lead to poor educational outcomes or fewer job opportunities, creating economic disadvantage. For example, a college graduate earns over $36,000 more per year than someone who did not finish high school. Income can determine the neighborhood you live in. The environmental conditions of a neighborhood can affect a person's health. In Marin, California, someone can live 15 years longer than someone who lives just 8 miles away. Why? Lower income neighborhoods tend to be in poor social and environmental conditions. Examples include being closer to environmental hazards, such as freeways or power plants, having higher crime or violence rates, or limited access to healthy foods and safe places to exercise. Social, economic, and environmental conditions can affect health disparities, which are differences in health among groups of people. Health behaviors affect disparities. If people are not educated on how to lead a healthy lifestyle, or they lack social and financial support to make healthy choices, they may choose certain behaviors over others. Behaviors such as smoking, poor nutrition, or unsafe sexual behaviors increase chances of developing chronic conditions or diseases, which can affect how long someone lives. Smokers live at least 10 years less than non-smokers. Health disparities are also affected by genetics. We are learning more every day about how our genetic makeup makes us more vulnerable to certain health problems. Access to quality healthcare is one key in reducing inequities and disparities, but health is more than just disease or illness. Health is how we treat others, the opportunities we are given, where we live, and our everyday behaviors. Nobody should be denied the chance to live a long, healthy life because of social, economic, or environmental conditions. To achieve health equity, we need to eliminate avoidable health inequities and health disparities. We need to create fair opportunities for health, provide equal access to resources, and invest in low-income neighborhoods. Health equity will be achieved when everyone is able to reach their full health potential.
To learn more, visit our website at healthequity.sfsu.edu.
Kelly, a former NASA astronaut, and I'm on a mission to help your kids learn coding and math this summer at Byju's Future School. I've spent 520 days in space, and I've learned that only two things are infinite: the universe and a child's potential. But space and our
Okay, so technical difficulties for sure, but we are good. Please bear with us. He has a new computer. That was just a little informational we wanted to show. And I know most of you already know these things. And so if we have other folks in the audience kind of want to know how this health inequity and social justice and how these all come together and they work, that's what we wanted to show to get you ready for what we are about to go into and talk about, which is how we address these inequities and these disparities. Next, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Donald Wood and Amber to go ahead and start our healing space exercises. And we appreciate again them coming and taking time out of their very busy schedule to be here with us. So thank you guys very much.
Before we do that, Donald, you need all the participants to be panelists so that you can see them, correct?
That would be most helpful, right?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yep.
I'm going to work on that as you introduce.
Okay.
All right, and you'll, assume we have sharing ability, so
Yep.
Amber will share her screen as I get started.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you. And thank you, Clarice and Kwame, and for inviting us to take part of this and for being part of such an esteemed group. We're really excited. And so we all know the United States has a really unique history of racism that has resulted in disparate and unjust outcomes. Indeed, institutionalized racism operates all over the world. So at the same time, the more we learn about race, gender, ethnicity, and other cultural factors that contribute to health inequities, the more our determination to make a difference grows. That's the good news. The other side of that is too often our only learning about racialized truths, racialized history is steeped in trauma and struggle, providing a very narrow view of Blackness and the experiences of other people of color. And this just perpetuates this false notion of Black and other people of color's inferiority. So as a result, we too often come away with this warped understanding of how racial inequity manifests today, and repeated instances of this narrow and often incorrect or false racialized narrative. This contributes, right, to a larger traumatic experience for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And these experiences affect our mental and even physical health. This doesn't mean that we need to skip teaching, learning, and talking about these really hard truths for the fear of inflicting trauma. Instead, we need to take care to really build intentional spaces where we teach the truth and avoid as much harm as possible in the racial equity building process. So that process starts with telling the whole truth, not a piece of it, not a half truth, or just definitely not misinformation, but the whole truth about Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, Asian American, Pacific Islander, so many other people of color's history in Arkansas and across the country. So in the context of advancing racial equity within and through public health and healthcare systems, at our organization, Just Communities of Arkansas, or JCA, we just cannot emphasize enough how that understanding and reckoning with our racial truth, both past and present, is key to dismantling the structural components of institutionalized racism. So we see that a critical role in co-creating our racial equity is embracing truth sharing as more than simply expressing words, but as a physical act, a cultural influencing behavior. And to do this, even once we collectively start to really embrace the historical and current truths that make up racism, we really first need to be prepared to heal together from the impending impact of owning or embracing those truths. So it's in our experience in the social science research that there's clear evidence that addressing trauma is critically important to advancing racial equity. So at JCA, we design all of our experiences to really foster the conditions necessary for understanding and reckoning with both our individual truths and our societal ones, while also promoting healing. And then from that design, we at JCA do our best then to facilitate a shared experience where everyone in the space feels that they're respected, feels that they have the permission to feel included, to learn, to contribute, to challenge the status quo, all without the fear of being embarrassed or marginalized or punished in some way. This is what's known as psychological safety. So co-creating psychological safety relies really heavily on setting the tone early in a space like this that we're going to be leading you all through over the next 45 or so minutes, and continuing to model that behavior. In other words, either you show the way or you're getting in the way. So what we want to do now, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and dear friend and mentor and co-conspirator Amber Booth McCoy, to lead us through a process of coming to some agreements, some touchstones that we can establish together in order that we can, as psychologically safe as possible, and in as a trauma-informed way as possible, start to heal together as we move forward in dismantling racial inequity and really building the kind of racially equitable healthcare system that we all want and need and deserve in Arkansas. So, Amber?
Thank you very much. Y'all see why I love my co-conspirator, my favorite co-conspirator, Don Wood. My name is Amber Booth McCoy, or just Amber Nicole, your favorite diversity specialist. And I am going to lead you through our, what we call touch points and touchstones. This is just a quote that Donald and I both love, from James Baldwin. It says, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." So even while we are going to discuss racial healing and we are going to share from our lived experiences, we're also going to acknowledge that there are some things that have nothing to do with matters of opinion, that parties and politics have nothing to do with civil rights and human rights. And when we're talking about racial equity, that we are focusing on human rights. And additionally, we're going to value the lived experiences of others. So first, our windows and mirrors. Windows and mirrors are a concept that comes from the National Seed Project. And windows are if someone is sharing a story about their life, or maybe you're watching a movie or reading something and you don't identify, you don't see yourself reflected, you don't have context for that story, then that is a window for you. If you are watching something or you're hearing a story and you can see yourself reflected and you can identify, then that is a mirror for you. So during this space, we're asking for you to look for the windows and mirrors as we seek to affirm, value, and embrace all of them. Because we are asking us to briefly share some parts of our lived experience, that we're asking that you are visible if possible. We understand everyone is unable to do that, but if individuals are going to be as transparent and authentic with us and vulnerable enough to share some of their lived experience, that they're able to possibly look into the eyes of those with whom they are sharing. Everything that we do is by invitation always. We want as much participation as possible, but we are just simply letting you know that you should not feel forced to participate. It is always by invitation. To embrace the discomfort. Someone else's truth may make you uncomfortable, and we also want to acknowledge that intent does not equal impact, right? You may mean something or say something, mean it as benign as Bruce Banner, and it lands on someone like the Hulk. In this space, we're going to allow for grace and to acknowledge that someone else's truth may make us uncomfortable. We may need to also sit with that truth for a while because it doesn't make that truth wrong, right? And to honor the silence. There will be times that maybe we've opened the floor to provide a prompt and no one jumps right in, and that's okay. Donald and I have been doing this long enough to know when someone is maybe needing to process versus there is an uncomfortable silence because no one at all wants to talk, all right? So you don't have to feel compelled to jump in just because you hear silence, okay? Before we jump into any difficult questions, we want to offer you the opportunity to simply share with us. If you using a type of weather event or a type of weather or weather event, how would you describe your week? In order to participate, you can text your vote to this number here on the screen. If you hover with your smartphone over this QR code, it should take you directly there. Or you can go to swiftpolling.com and type in this number. And we just want to know, how would you describe your week? I think I would describe this week as flash floods. It was sunny with flash floods. It was very busy, and I definitely had a lot going on. I knew that these things were coming, but it just seemed like maybe they came faster than I thought they would. So yeah, I would say that they were flash floods. What about you, Don?
Yeah, I was just actually typing.
Oh,
But yeah, that was thinking for me, mostly sunny, but probably needing some rain, needing some nourishment, feeling very exhausted and worn out. So I see that rain is something that can bring some new life.
okay. Yeah, optimistic. There's cloudy and sunny. Somebody had a typhoon type of week. That's a mirror for me, but windy and cloudy, a calm rain. I like a calm summer rain, right? Like that's a good. I left my window up, not too much because I don't want bugs and such, but that's a good rain. Okay, like a Carl Thomas type of summer rain. Now, for this prompt, because there are, enough of us, you're welcome to place it in chat or even take yourself off of mute. We also just want to be mindful of time. So if you would finish this prompt, racism in America today is, I think I would say that racism in America today is terminal. So how would you finish this prompt? And if you'd like to unmute yourself and share, you're welcome to do so.
And I think it may be set up to where if you do want to turn off your mic and let us know, because we will need to. Oh, never mind. I think it's being changed right now where everyone has talking.
There you are.
Feel free to put it in the chat or turn off your mic and briefly share with us how you would complete that sentence.
Yeah. Someone said unapologetically traumatic. Agreed. Alive and well. And cancerous. Anyone? It's like
deadly.
Okay. Let's see. Deadly, a problem, painful, bold and loud. That too. All right. Anyone else? Racism in America today is.
Exhausting.
That's a mirror for me. Right? So we'll give you a second to think about this next question. What is the hardest part about your racial identity? Again, you can place yourself, take yourself off of mute and briefly share and or place it in chat. I think that for me, the hardest part about my race, I identify as being Black and not African American for the most part. It's just Black. I like being a part of the diaspora and thinking about being a part of the whole. But the hardest part about my racial identity, I think, is that I often feel like I have to defend my lived experience. Conversations about race often lead to me feeling as though I am about to have to explain my experiences, what's happened, and then have to then defend those same experiences even though I lived them. So, anyone else? Being stereotyped, being seen and heard, not minimalized. And that's the hardest part about your racial identity.
And it says being a passion informed and active ally, but it's so worth the work.
I want to lift up mine. I said that we're even still using the word race, which is an evil and discriminatory social construct. And we're using that as a way to define people. I think we need to eliminate it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Tina said the unlearning and unpacking on a continuous basis. Yeah, thanks for being here.
That is a mirror for me. Continually processing or identifying internalized racism in my own life, and then processing that has made me very well aware that I feel Blackness is a journey, or even Black pride, if you will, can be a journey.
And it's and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce. Is it Shanae or Shania? Says compensatory striving. I really like that. I've never heard that word.
All right. And again, anyone, like I said, wanted to take yourself off of mute is welcome to share. And if you are not, if you're not speaking directly to us, if you would mute yourself, please. One second. All right. Anyone else want to share about their racial identity before we move to the next part?
Hi, this is I'm sorry, this is Shanae Nelson. I'm having a hard time hearing, so I apologize. But I'm not sure if you want to expound on my take on compensatory striving, but just the subconscious feeling of inferiority and feeling like that added pressure to achieve goals, to achieve superiority. And that's something I know personally that I'm a high achiever, I believe, as a result of that feeling, that subconscious feeling.
Thank you. It's definitely a mirror for me, especially when I feel that I've been told forever that you have to work twice as hard to get half. And I think that is a dangerous sentiment to keep sharing in society, to even have someone expect half while they work, twice as hard. It's just having to unlearn that my productivity has nothing to do with, with my race.
Exactly. And I'm working through that. The same here. I remember my mom telling me, you start off with 20 points off. And that stuck with me until now. So, yeah, working through it.
It's okay. It's a journey, remember. It's a journey. Anyone else? Sorry, I sneezed. All right.
Yeah, so for this next question, to kind of preface it as you read it and think about it, if we truly want to move genuinely towards collective liberation or racial equity, we have to acknowledge fully and completely how collectively confused we are, and we are collectively. And there may be instances in which we realize, and there should be instances, because we all have room to grow, instances in which we realize how little we know about racism. And although it's a social construct, it is a reality now in our world that impacts everybody, and everybody impacts it. But this construct does need to be dismantled. It does need to come crumbling down. And there's always going to be a room for learning, and where we can always start, and arguably where it's most important in this learning is about ourselves, and grappling, reckoning, wrestling with our individual truths and our relationship to and role in race and racism. So what is your earliest memory of having a racial identity or being part of the racial group that you identify with? What's your earliest memory of that? So again, please feel free to use the chat or turn off your mic and briefly share with the group.
I feel like I knew I was Black when I was born. Just came out automatically knowing that I smell like cocoa butter and my heart pumped with Zulu drums and such. But I think it was probably, of course, and I loved Black history and always have loved Black history, especially in elementary. And it wasn't until I was in maybe 4th or 5th grade where I had a substitute teacher not believe that my name was Amber. That I feel like it was the first time I experienced being othered for that same identity. Like I felt like I always knew I was Black. I just didn't have any bad associations with being Black until that incident. So, anyone else? Senior year of high school. Earliest memory, positive or neutral, my family and my Black church experience. Yes. Because you were there all day? That's how you were being in Black church. See, y'all smiling because you know you were at church all day. Y'all oh. And you had those stockings. Anyone else? We're hooping and hollering. Yes. Tired when you got home. So. First time I encountered discrimination or othering was in elementary school. And as I said, public elementary school was in a town that used to be a sundown town. Yep. Yep. When I think about even just the fear of things like sundown town, that it folks, even as an adult, you know, as I drive through places in Arkansas, I used to think, oh, let me get out of here. I mean, like places that I feel like this is a state I've lived in my whole life. And I would drive through and think, okay, I don't really know much about this town. Go ahead, Clarice. Like, I don't really know much about this space. Let me get somewhere safer. Earliest memory was in elementary and having to realize that my name was complicated to pronounce to my peers and teachers. My experiences at my first employer. Speaking of stockings, oh my goodness. When I asked my mother why stockings were flesh tone was not my tone, you know how I was an adult before I realized that ballet shoes were supposed to be flesh colored. I had no idea until I saw those brown ballet shoes, you know, on I had no idea at all. I just thought mine looked different than my friends.
And EC Ward asks, what is a sundown town? Amber, do you want to share? Do you want me to go ahead?
Sundown town is a town where Black, Indigenous, or other people of color have been told that you may not want to be here when the sun goes down. As in, like, all rules are off and your physical safety may be in danger. Your life in general. So, there used to be maps and such that were created to assist with telling Black people where they were or were not safe, if you will, as they traveled across the United States. Have when other kids wanted to touch or feel my hair, make it stop. Middle school, middle school, when a classmate called me Mexican and I corrected them that I identify as Black. Yeah. And Daphne says the Green Book. That's And you may have seen that movie, The Green Book. It's how they knew how to travel and where to travel. Again, that speaks to those sundown towns.
And you probably noticed that, several of these comments come at, very early age, in an adolescent age when we're still, developing, especially emotionally, but think about physically too, our brains are developing, and to be othered, like Dr. Whitfield put, is almost like a constant attack. And Amber puts it much better when she talks about, I think it's death by 1,000 cuts. And, forget the highfalutin terms we use in DEI, like microaggressions and micro inequities. It straight up is constantly making you feel like you're othered or you're different, and in a negative context, and those things start to wear you down. In my case, it's exact opposite. As someone, I obviously identify as white. It wasn't until high school when I actually dated a Black girl that I actually really experienced, even if it was to some extent, vicariously, because I could never truly experience systemic structural racism or oppression. That's because of the response that I got from friends and even some family about dating, a Black girl. And so I was completely ignorant and naive, blissfully, because I never experienced that. I never, because of the color of my skin, no matter my socioeconomic status, no matter my mental or physical abilities, no matter that's separate, strictly because of the color of my skin, never, ever, ever experienced anything like that. And that then from a positive standpoint for my health was something I never, ever, ever had to worry about. And there's no 6-year-old child or 12-year-old child who is actively thinking when someone's asking to touch her hair, or if someone is incorrectly pronouncing their name and flippantly saying, well, whatever, I'll just call you this, something else, because they won't take the time to pronounce it. That young person's not thinking, oh my God, this is physically, emotionally hurting me every day. But that's beside the point. It is physically, emotionally. And then that is compounded by the generational trauma that people feel who've experienced racism and other forms of oppression for literally millennia. So I just wanted us to keep in context, although these are the earliest memories people have, these are not the only experiences that people had.
By far. I also feel that several of these were stated, they happened in elementary. And I do think that K through 12 spaces is probably where I experienced othering the most. And even the frustration of the fact that, we get my friends' names wrong. But then I'm supposed to be able to say the person that, wrote Crime and Punishment. I'm just saying, it's just, we're able to pronounce certain things and, not others. So that's frustrating. All these different composers and all of these are things that we say with no problem. So we had in elementary at a softball tournament, went to the store, and the store didn't have products for my hair, for my mom to fix my hair. Listen here, going to 3 different Walgreens to find shampoo, that's just it'd be easier to put a sign on the door that says, we don't sell that here. You didn't have to say that. We know what you mean. So you could just say we don't sell that here. So, and as far as your racial identity, if anyone wants to share before we move forward, like if you want to take yourself off of mute, those elementary experiences or junior high school experiences, I was in AP classes. In the advanced placement classes, there were only, in my high school, there were 4 Black students in advanced placement, which is a whole different issue altogether. But, because you're not going to tell me that we were the 4 smartest Black students in the entire school, right? But because of that, we couldn't be in the same class at the same time. And so 2 of us could be in a class together, but that was it. And thus, the schedule was based on when we could be in class, based on our other extracurricular activities. So me being in band, choir, or you know, like those things are stationary, right? Like that's first period, and then this is fourth period for band. Then they filled in the schedule based on when, you know, you could have 2 of us in one and 2 of us in the other. So it was just a constant reminder at all times that you are Black, and in case you forgot. Yeah. Anyone else? Before we move forward? Well, we are here to talk about racial equity. So, I'm going to say, as it relates to racial equity and public health in Arkansas, what are your thoughts or hopes about the future? And 1 second, you're going to be able to participate using that same, the same text that you did earlier, to the same place. Give me just 1 second. So using 3 words or less, or if you want to take yourself off of mute, you can do so. How would you describe your hope for a racially equitable tomorrow? I feel like I would say that I am cautiously optimistic, or even exhaustedly optimistic. Like I'm exhausted from the work that has to be done to dismantle these systems, but I'm optimistic that sometimes it seems like we are gaining more allies by the day. So many hands make light work, and maybe eventually we can take some days off. The more allies we have. Anyone else? Tomorrow is too far. Okay. Tomorrow is too far away. Are you willing to share aloud? What does that mean? Tomorrow is too far away. Discouraged but hopeful. Vulnerable is courageous. Are you willing to share any more? Oh,
Amber, I'm here. You wanted me to elaborate on tomorrow is too far away. It's like we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it looks like we're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So that's why tomorrow is too far away.
I'll do that. What about vulnerable is courageous? I'd love to hear more about that as well.
That was actually, mine. I've just been talking and thinking about this a lot lately in the work we do, and we live in a society where individualism and grit are so overwhelmingly hammered into our brains that how we have to be in order to be happy or even content, successful in this life. And so vulnerability sometimes is seen as a literally antithesis of courage. And I see that completely opposite, especially for myself and folks like me who've been very fortunate in several ways in life and simply hit the genetic lottery in a lot of ways. That we need to own that privilege, and we need to own the fact that we don't know everything, and that being the very best at all costs is not an admirable attribute.
Yes. Say it twice. There is no award for overworked Black Girl of the Year. Yes, there is. That meme, listen, you laughing, Dr. Nash. That meme did something to me when I saw it, and I printed it out and posted it on my mirror. There is no award. And I thought for sure there was an award. For sure, I thought they were giving that out. Oh, they are not. They're not giving that award out. So, I did not know. Anyone else? Anyone else as far as your thoughts on a racially equitable tomorrow? Ooh, when we don't need any more symposiums like this. Yes. You know what I think? I think when I, at some point in time, at every part of my, like during every day of my life, I am reminded in some way that I'm Black. It doesn't mean it's negative. Like, you know, it can be positive or something, whether it's speaking Ave or, you know, a meme or something, a hashtag. I guess so. Maybe it will be for me when I go one day, I guess, without being reminded by society that I'm Black. I don't know. Just one.
Yes. All right, so we're gonna kind of wrap up this healing space session, and Amber's gonna be bringing up a song that we're gonna play while everyone kind of has the opportunity to reflect on what we just, in this very brief amount of time that we've had today. And please know that when Amber and I do healing spaces, you know, a lot of times that even when they're on average an hour and a half plus more, that's even not enough time. But we look at it as a step forward, and we recognize that some of the things that may have been said, some of the things that just may have come up inside of you just based on a question may have been difficult, if not traumatic. And we just encourage you to take care and do whatever you need to take care of yourself, whether that's stepping out of, you know, symposium briefly, or reaching out to others, or whatever you need to do. And if you need resources from us, we are not therapists or trained psychologists, psychiatrists, but we do have access and resources if you need anything like that. So please let us know. But because of these inequities, the racial inequities that are just woven into the fabric of our society, and woven definitely into the fabric of our healthcare system and public health, we have to make a conscious, concerted effort to encourage voices of people that experience oppression, that are typically marginalized, that are in the minority, to come forward. So we have to create spaces wherever we can, but we have to also recognize that sometimes these aren't comfortable spaces, and to be honest with you, a lot of times they shouldn't be comfortable spaces, but sometimes these are very uncomfortable spaces. Sometimes you come in with an expectation, but you come out with a different experience, and you may say that's failure, but it is really about your perspective. And think about FAIL as an acronym. Your first attempt in learning. I mean, that's really it is, first attempt in learning. That's what it is. It's something, an opportunity for you to grow and learn. There's no, hopefully confusion that we encourage just the absolute pursuit of trauma for the sake of racial equity, but we have to embrace the fact that trauma and discomfort and those things are going to come about when we're talking about really difficult, traumatic things. And we need to keep asking ourselves what's missing. You know, Amber and I designed this program to ask these questions for you to really reflect on them. But there's what we want you to ask now is what's still missing? You know, what are the other questions that I need to be asking myself first and reckoning with, and then being able to ask the people that I am in a relationship with and have maybe influence with, in order that we can embrace this truth that I talked about. We have to be with, we have to forget leaning in, we have to embrace the things that we're afraid to allow, that we're afraid to even think about exist in our world. You know, we can't think necessarily that if we just got rid of race in the construct, we can move on. I agree with that in theory, but that's just not the reality. So we need to be thinking, what do I need to do to dismantle that social construct of racism to co-create something that is truly equitable? We've got to meet fear with gentleness, but at the same time be fearless in that. So please, we hope that you embrace the rest of the information that you're going to be hearing during the symposium, because you're going to be meeting and hearing from people that are a whole heck of a lot smarter than I am, but just as smart as Amber. And just really embrace what you're hearing, lean in or embrace that discomfort you're going to feel throughout this. And then afterwards, sit with that and then reach out to others and start to strengthen and build community so we can collectively, advance racial equity within Arkansas's public health system. So I appreciate y'all's time and attention and participation, and just going to turn it over to Amber.
Thank you very much. I, of course, love what I call the tunes, and agree with the quote, after silence, that which comes nearest to expressing the inexpressible is music. So I like to end our sessions with a song, and it's more so that before you go into your next space, that you're able to give yourself a break, that you're able to just kind of pause and regardless of what you felt in this space, that you're able kind of to cleanse your palate, if you will, a little bit before you move on to the next. So she almost got me with the tears. All right. Andrew Day will not mess up my makeup today. So thank you for your time, and we are going to turn it back over to the dynamic duo.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you so much, Donald. You guys are amazing as always. We really appreciate you. And I hope that you all were able to, kind of sit in the healing space and feel what was going on, and allow yourself actually to feel uncomfortable, feel anxious, feel like there should be more, that there is more, and that we can do better. And I'm hoping that those were some of the emotions that you were allowed yourself to feel. There's just so much more to healing and what all we have to do to get there. It is a perpetual process. It is one that we never arrive to, so we have to continue to do it. And so thank you again, Amber and Donald, for allowing us all to heal once again, or to continue our process in healing. And we're gonna go to a break, but this break is a break that will take you also into before we get to our panel. So we want to show you. I'm sorry, hold on just a second. There's the break there. So we're gonna go to a break. Again, I'm sorry. And it'll be about a 15-minute break. But this break, again, it's about living in Arkansas and another element of inequity and health inequities and disparities in Arkansas. As you know, that Arkansas is the only state that has a landlord implied warrant of habitability. And, you know, when we're working in spaces of health and equity, on our top list is people being sheltered and people having a place to live. You know, we address food insecurity, we address, what else? There's so many things to address, but we can't stop there. A lot of times the issues of not being able to be healthy and whole come from not having a place to live. And it's scientifically proven. There are a lot of studies on it. As a matter of fact, one of them was done with the help of UAMS. I have to actually have it in the chat, and I'm gonna send that to you for you to read. It's an article called Health Complaints Associated with Poor Rental Housing. And so we want to play this. It's about 10 minutes. You have a 15-minute break. I want you to look at it. And if you've never seen this, you know, just kind of glean from this video and stories. And we know stories connect us. Listening to stories of people who are facing housing issues and how it actually affects them in ways that we know are directly connected to their health. Like in the beginning, we talked about stress and PTSD and all of those things. So we're gonna go ahead and play it, and then we'll come back after that. We will have Anika Whitfield introduce Dr. Sherelle. And am I saying Sherelle? Is that correct, Dr. Barber? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, that's right. That's correct.
Thank you, Dr. Barber. And then we're gonna let her speak from there. So give us just a second. I'm gonna get this video up.
The police came to our house on Tuesday. I never received the eviction notice. We came in and I explained the situation. They offered him 90 days in jail because of failure to vacate. It's unconstitutional.
It's a hard life for renters in Arkansas. It's the only state in America with no implied warranty of habitability. Or in other words, landlords are not required to make repairs or maintain their properties. Perhaps more radical, it's the only state where you can be prosecuted, fined, and jailed for not paying rent on time. Every year, more than 2,000 people are charged under Arkansas's failure to vacate law. Dustin Duke is a legal aid attorney. He specializes in representing tenants in failure to vacate cases.
Failure to vacate was passed at the beginning of the last century at the bequest of landlords as an easy, cheap method to dispossess tenants of their property with really minimal effort on the landlord's part because the state is taking over that role for them.
If a tenant is even a day late on rent, the landlord can begin the eviction process. Tenants are given only 10 days to vacate the property. A conviction can carry a fine up to $100 for each day the tenant remains in the property and up to 90 days in jail.
It's just black and white. Is your rent due? Yes or no? Did you pay the rent? If the answer is no, and you haven't gotten out in 10 days, then you can be convicted under the statute. It's a crime.
This makes things difficult for the third of Arkansas's residents who are renters and have legitimate concerns about the properties they're occupying. Tenants are required to pay rent even if their landlords aren't maintaining their properties. Arkansas is the second poorest state in America, and 18% of the population that live below the poverty line are now being swept up into the criminal justice system. Kim Barnes was evicted for being late on rent.
They actually fingerprinted me and took a mugshot, like I was a criminal. I said all of this just because of failure to vacate.
Barnes claimed she had paid the rent on time, but the landlord refused to take her payment.
With me and my situation, I'm gonna make sure my kids have a roof over their head. That rent gonna be the first thing I pay out. I had proof that I had the money order. She just wanted us out.
Under Arkansas's criminal eviction statute, Barnes was given 10 days to move. Despite claiming she moved before the time period ended, her landlord pressed charges for failure to vacate.
I had already moved. Once I got my eviction notice and she wouldn't work with us, we just said, okay, we'll move. And then I had to go to court today. He asked me, how do I plead on failure to vacate? And I said,
Cole, he's my miracle child.
said not guilty. Because, I'm not guilty. Because I was out of this woman's place in reasonable time like she asked me to be, after she still wouldn't accept my payment. I have to go back in April. Hopefully by then I have all my paperwork showing what dates I did exactly move out.
Challenging a criminal eviction is tricky. If a tenant, like Barnes, wants to plead not guilty and take their case to trial, they first have to pay the full amount of rent that the landlord claims they owe into the court.
So there's a real incentive there for the tenant to leave, to get out of the premises, and especially considering that they're now facing a crime. Most of the time, it's just the matter of the tenant getting out. And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? If they owe money, maybe they should get out. But the problem is, the way the system is set up, it allows landlords to abuse the system. The tenant very rarely gets a chance to give their side of the story. You might be withholding the rent because the landlord promised to make repairs. You never get to raise those claims, of course, because this isn't a civil matter. You don't get to raise counterclaims in a criminal lawsuit. But let's just assume that it's just a straight-up non-payment of rent case. Even then, you got to question the wisdom of deciding in this particular case that the state wants to pick up the tab.
The state of Arkansas bears the cost of deploying members of law enforcement to serve evictions and providing prosecutors for court proceedings. The only cost to landlords is a small processing fee. That is good news for landlords and their representatives. Jason Bolden is a real estate attorney and a landlord with more than 60 properties.
The criminal method is not as radical as it may seem. I've been handling hundreds of evictions over the years. I've never once seen a tenant ever serve a day in jail due to the criminal eviction statute. I would say 90% of all evictions in Arkansas use the criminal method. It's fairly simple and easy and inexpensive. If the tenant is staying in your property and not paying the rent, essentially the tenant's allowed to steal from you. It's a crime akin to a parking ticket. You park at the meter, you don't put any money in to that meter, well, then you can be ticketed.
I don't live in my car. Maybe the people who are comparing it to a parking ticket do live in their cars, but this is somebody's home that's being taken away from them, and their conduct is being criminalized. Tenants are sometimes jailed under this statute.
Currently, the data on the number of tenants jailed in cases related to Arkansas's criminal eviction statute is not available to the public. In fact, much of the information available about the reality of landlord-tenant relations in Arkansas has not come from the state, but from legal researchers like Lynn Foster.
With the landlord-tenant situation, you have kind of the poorest segment of our society being penalized for this behavior, which in every other state is not criminal behavior. I think that's one reason why nothing much has been done and not much attention has been focused on it.
In 2011, Foster joined a state-assembled commission of tenant advocates, industry groups, lawyers, and judges to recommend modifications to Arkansas's landlord-tenant law. Their report, released in the winter of 2012, recommended repealing failure to vacate.
What the commission recommended unanimously was that a better civil eviction statute be put into place. Then the failure to vacate statute should be repealed by the legislature.
The Commission's recommendations were approved by representatives of all parties, most importantly, tenants' rights advocates and both major associations representing landlords and realtors. But implementing the recommendations would prove daunting.
My initial thought when I received the Commission's recommendations was that we might be able to turn that into legislation and try to get something passed during the session that we were currently in. It became clear to us pretty quickly that the realtors and the landlords were very vehemently against this issue and would lobby hard against it. I don't think I expected that kind of opposition to happen so quickly and so strongly. It seemed like the recommendations were the result of consensus.
The Arkansas Realtors Association proved to have an influential lobby. They circulated a letter around the legislature in opposition to the commission's recommendations. After that, few lawmakers would consider the proposed changes. In a letter to their membership, the association celebrated that they had stopped the bill. It mentioned that they had fought legislation intended to fundamentally change landlord-tenant practices in Arkansas, and that the municipal eviction process would have been eliminated and warranty of habitability imposed. In other words, eviction